Hi, Mario.
Hi. Hmm.
Where's George been?
He was in Italy last week for a Chassanet, but I don't know if he's back.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. Or maybe after the Chassanet he stayed in Europe,
Sure, do a vacation.
Yeah, why go for 5 days, 6 days?
You're already there.
Yeah. Mhm. So how's your apartment coming along?
It's coming. Coming.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah. 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 Every case here, it goes this way, and then let's try it this way, and let's do it this way. There's like 10 variations of every case.
Mhm.
Two people cut. Now, person cuts two knives, one person, two knives.
I can understand the two people.
How they do it? How do you do it?
At the same time, it has to be, if not, it's
I,
not.
right. I don't know.
That's with one knife. But what if they use two knives? Why?
Why would they even do that?
What if the knife fell on the slaughterer's hand? Oh, that's the next mission.
What's the advantage? I don't know. In all these hypotheticals, I guess they want to, in case in the future somebody wants to do it.
No, they didn't have anything to think about.
This is their imagination at work.
Yes.
Hello, Abe. How are you?
Hello, Baruch Hashem. How are
Any
you?
Good,
any trips
good.
coming up, Abe? Any
Any
trips to
what?
China?
Yeah, I think in July.
Oh,
I'm supposed to go now, but
you go to the
could
same place? What, Shenzhen? Where do you go?
I go to Hong
Guangzhou
Kong,
or
Hong
Hong
Kong,
Kong?
but then I go to Guangzhou. Yeah, go across the border.
There's still Jews in Hong Kong?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
There are. There are.
Harold, it's too tight this learning straight off the München mark, man.
I know. No time to eat.
It isn't. I'm eating now.
Yeah, I have to eat early the rest
Switch
of
off
the
the recorder, Mario.
week.
Why? Why can't you
No,
shutting it off?
Yeah.
We're on Lamed Bays. Actually, the bottom of 31b. Amrava.
Oh.
Shachat par v'shachat be'emacher sima. We learned that when you do the paraduma, you can't do another activity. So let's say he shechted a chulin animal along with the paraduma animal. Divrei akol psula. The paraduma is puzzle because he did another activity. The other animal is kosher. Nishkata be'emacher sima. Let's say the other animal, you didn't have kavana for the other animal. So said you don't need kavana parapsula because you did another action, but behemak shera rabbanon parak shera because the shechting without kavana is meaningless. So you didn't do another action, and behemak psula. So the Gemara says pshita. I mean, we would understand this. The chiddush is when the other animal was shechted without kavana. You have to shecht only the paradum and nothing else. For example, you shechted two paradumas. So that would be a problem. I would think that it does not pull the paraduma. That it does. However, chotach dalasima, let's say you cut a watermelon along with the paraduma, divra kol psula, because you did another activity. But that was only if you do it with kavana. Nechtecha dalasima, if it got cut without kavana, then divra kol kshera, then everything is okay. Because you did it without kavana, you didn't do another action along with the paraduma. Mishnah. One of the invalidations of shchita is shehiyah. You delay during the shchita. Nafla sakin, while you're shechting, you dropped the knife higbiya. Then you took the time to pick it up. So you paused. Naflu kela higbiyan. Or his begodim fell, and he had to pick up his garments. Hishkiz is a sakin va'af. He had suffered sharpening his knife that he became tired, and he couldn't finish. Uba chaver v'shachat, and a friend came and finished it. In all these cases, im shakidei shchita, if the delay was the time it takes to do shchita, we'll see to do shchita of what? Psula. Reb Shimon Omer im shakidei bikur, to do a check, an examination. We don't know what that means. The Gemara will explain. My kedei shchita, what is the delay, the time it takes you to do shchita? Amarav kedei shchita spei macheres, the time it takes you to shecht another animal. Now, it takes longer to shecht an animal than it does a bird. So is the shehiyah period for an animal the time it takes to shecht an animal, and a bird? Maybe the time it takes you to shecht a behema, even when you're shechting a bird, and that would be a kula, because it gives you more time before you puzzle the shchita. The Rav says, I wasn't comfortable to ask my uncle, Reb Chia, to ask that question. However, Itmar. Later on, it was taught that Amar Rav, that the time of delay, if you're shechting an animal, is the period of time it takes to shecht another animal. If you shecht a bird, it's the period of time to shecht another bird. Shmuel says even when you're shechting a bird, if you delay the period of time it takes to shecht an animal, that's the maximum. Now, Rav Chanina Amar Kadei Sheyava Be'ema Acheres V'Yishchot, that the delay is the period of time that it takes to bring another animal and shecht it. So the Gemara says, Yavi Afilu Me'alma, you mean even from anywhere? But sometimes an animal is close, sometimes it's far. And then the Satat V'Rechel is shear, and then the shear isn't a uniform shear. They're talking about the animal, all it needs to be done is for you to throw it to the ground and shecht it. That's what it means, Behema Cheres. Another opinion, the time it takes for you to pick up a sheep, throw it to the ground and shecht it. Daka l'daka, a small animal like a sheep or a goat. V'gasa l'gasa, a large animal. Amarava, hashoichet besakin ra. You did shchita with a dull knife. Afilu kol hayom kulo. Now, as long as you're going through the standard motions of shchita, ksheira, because you didn't pause. Boy rova shehios. If you paused a number of times, maushit starfu. Can you add them up until you get to this proper shear? Why don't you answer from what you said that even if you take all day to shecht, it's okay? So Hasan below Shah, but there was no pausing. So you don't have an answer from there. Shah b'miut simonim. you cut 51% of the simonim. And now when you're cutting the remainder, you pause. Mao. Maybe it's not a problem because you've already cut 51%. Take. Rav Shimon Omer, im shokidei bikur, if the delay is the period of time that it takes you to examine, well, we don't know what he's examining, that's the shear. My kidei bikur. Amar Rav Yochanan kidei bikur shel chacham. Right? There was a halacha that you had to send your knife to the Talmid Chacham of the ear for him to check it. Well, sometimes the Talmid Chacham is close, sometimes it's far. And therefore, it's not a uniform halacha. The wachting is a Talmid Chacham. How long does it take for him to examine the knife? That's the shear. Shochat esaveshet. You divided the esophagus. Upasak is gargeres. And then there was a nick in the knife and it tore the trachea. Oh, pasak is gargeres. Or the trachea was torn. V'achakach shochat esaveshet. Oh, shochat eched mehen. You only cut one of the simonim by a behema. V'himti lad shemesa. You waited and you never cut the other simon. So it died. You divided the first simon, then you slid the knife behind the esophagus and cut it from front to back. Rav Yishav Omer nevela. All cases of nevela would convey tumma. Rabbi Kiva Omer treifa. A treifa is not, can eat it, but it does not convey tumma. Klal Amar Yishav B'Shem Rabbi Yoshua. Kol shenifzlecha b'shchita, if the invalidation occurred during shchita itself, like we talked about, tearing and pausing, pressing, the animal's nevela. But kol shechita sekroy, if you shechted properly, and then you found a defect, davar acham garlali posel, then that's a treifa, like a hole in the lung, or any other yudches treifas that we're going to learn in the next period. V'hodlo Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva eventually agreed to Rav Yishav. Shochat esaveshet. V'hodlo Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says in the end it's an avela. V'raminu elu treifas bebeima. The following are examples of treifas. Nekuva saveshet upsukas agargeres. If you tear the trachea, that's a treifa according to Rabbi Kiva. But our Mishnah says Rabbi Kiva switched to Rav Yishav and said it's an nevela. Amar Rav Eloi kasha. Kan sheshachad l'vasov pasak. He cut the esophagus in a correct way, and then the trachea was torn. That's one case in our Mishnah, which says it's an nevela. Kan shepasak l'vasov shachad. If he first tore the trachea, then you cut the esophagus. Shachad l'vasov pasak. If you first cut the first tube properly, and then you damage the trachea. Nifselas b'shchitahi. That's a problem that occurred during shchita. And both Rav Yishav and Rabbi Kiva will agree that it's nevela, which is the first case of our Mishnah. Pasak l'vasov shachat. But if you tore it, and then you shechted, that's as if there was a hole in the lung. And therefore, they would both consider it a treifa. You divided the esophagus. You tore the trachea. Or, the trachea was torn. And then, shachat esaveshet nevela. Even though, in the second case, the trachea was torn, and then you divided the esophagus properly, yet Rabbi Shaviv says it's a nevela. So, Ema ukvar shachat esaveshet mikar. At the beginning, he already cut the esophagus properly. So Amar Leish de Chuvas, whatever, that doesn't solve anything. Chadu Hainu Kamaisa. That's like the first case of the Mishnah. V'od hatnan v'achar kach. You can't say that this esophagus had already been cut. It says v'achar kach he cut the esophagus. El Amar Rava, that elu asuros ktani. You may not eat them. Yesh men nevelas, yesh men trefas. Some of them will be in nevela, some will be in the trefa, but not all of them. We should also include chizkiah. If you cut the animal in two, you cut the head off, or you cut it in the middle of the animal into two, that's a nevela. V'lichshav nami d'Rabbi Elazar. Dam Rabbi Elazar nitla yarech v'chalosh shel nevela. That if the whole limb, the thigh, until you can see the inside of the animal, it's also nevela. So kiktani nevela de lo metamim echayim. Those cases, while the animal is still moving, it's no tumah. Aval nevela metamim echayim lo ktani. It didn't mention those cases that are metame while it's still moving. Reish Lakish has another way to solve the kasha. There was already a hole in the esophagus, and you shechted in that place. Where you divided the esophagus, not in the same place where you have a hole. That's a problem that occurs during shechita, so it becomes nevela. But shalom b'makom chatach, and you happen to find a hole somewhere else, that's like finding a hole in the lawn. Ki davar acher gorem lo liposel dami, and that's a treifa. Freit the Gemara, umi amrei shlakish hachi, amrei shlakish shachar zakon v'achach nichvareya. You shechted the trachea, and afterwards you find a hole in the lung. Before you cut the esophagus. Ksheira. Alma kiman demancha b'dikula damya. Once you shech the trachea, it's as if it's not there anymore. Because remember, the trachea leads to the lung. And once you divide the trachea, the lung has nothing, it's not part of the animal. And therefore, just because you find a hole in it, it's not relevant. When you shechted the esophagus, not in the place where it was previously cut, or you did the trachea, we should also view it as if it's not in the body anymore. And therefore, it should be available. Very simply, loy kasha, kam koidim chazara. The Mishnah that said it was an avela, that's before he went back on his halacha. Kalachar chazara. Then he changed his mind. We keep the same Mishnah. Gufa. Amrei Shlakish. Shachad is a kind of achkach nikvareya. You divided the trachea and then a hole in the lung was found ksheira. Because since the lung has no access to anything, the trachea was cut, we don't view the lung as part of the body. The lung is part of the trachea. But if you find a hole in the intestine, then the shechita is not good. It's going to be a treifa. But maybe I'm low. Masker Reb Zeira. You said that if a defect occurs after you shechted one of the simonim, there was a time when it was permitted. Why should it be different lung versus the intestine? In fact, Reb Zeira went, the boy Reb Zeira, Nikvu b'nei mayayim ben siman l'siman. A hole occurred in the intestine between when you divided the trachea and the esophagus. Mao. Mi mitzvah siman rishon l'siman sheni. Do you now have two simonim l'tar midei nevela? You're going to have a treifa. It's got a hole in the stomach. You can't prevent that. But at least it's not going to be a nevela. Oh, lo, v'amrinon. Lav hainu de boy ilfa. This is exactly what Ilfa asked. Hotzi uber es yodu ben simin l'simin. You have a fetus in the uterus of the cow. And between shechting the esophagus and the trachea, the fetus stuck its leg out. Mahu. We'll go through this shaila tomorrow. Yishkoach, everybody. Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Ayach.